Okay, hello everybody. This is another K9 live talk. So we're live at 6 o'clock in the UK, and tonight we've got something a bit different. We've got Luke Jones and Ross Stephenson, and they're both former British Army dog handlers, and they now work in the private sector. And so I'm going to bring them in now. Here they come. Here's Luke and here's Ross. Hello, Jen.
How are you doing? You okay?
Hi, mate.
How are you doing? You okay?
All
Yeah,
good.
all good.
All good. Ready for this. See what people throw at us.
Thank you. Thanks very much for agreeing to come on and chat about what you do. We'll start off as we sort of normally do. Ross, do you want to tell us I gave you a little spiel on Facebook, and just now, obviously, your former British Army. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your career first?
Yeah, sure. I did 10 years in the veterinary corps. I did 3 tours. I did a tour in Iraq and 2 tours of Afghan. And then I also got posted to Germany for 3 years, and then Melton Mowbray as a dog trainer there, and then finished my last 3 years in Hereford working in there. And then I left and worked for a private security company as the head dog trainer there, and then set up a business with Luke, training bedbug detection dogs, and then moving on to the water leak detection dogs. And then this is where we are now.
Brilliant. Okay. And Luke, what about yourself?
Yeah, so pretty much similar military career. Joined the Army Veterinary Corps 2009 to 2013. Courses like vehicle search, detection, a project called Beak, which is sometimes known as IE3D, and tour of Afghanistan in 2012. And then left the army, and then worked for a couple of private security companies, Dogs Trust, Dog School, so like public training classes. And then went to work for a private security company that Ross also worked for, which then we moved on to CAPE together.
One of my first questions, what's it been like, the transition coming out of the military dog world into the private sector dog world? What are your experiences of that?
Go on, Ross.
Transition. It was strange, the transition going from military to civvy, on the way of like having to communicate with people in different ways. You kind of have to change your approach to a lot of things, which I struggled with. But yeah, I don't know. I think everyone's different and everyone has their own experiences when it comes to leaving. So I think if anyone is leaving or preparing or wants to leave or to were to leave, then I'll just say just prepare yourself as best you can before you do. And yeah.
Do you find you've got to be a bit more with the private sector? Obviously, I work for the Ministry of Defence, and everybody's quite straight talking and to the point, aren't they? Have you got to sort of play around people in the private sector a little bit more and be a bit more nicey?
Yeah, you can't get away with some of the things. What you would have once said. A bit more pink and fluffy.
What about working dogs? What have you brought? You were both dog trainers, dog handlers in the military. Have you brought everything that you learned in the military into what you do now, or are there things that you've learned from the private sector to what you're doing now?
Yeah, on dog training side, I learned loads leaving the military. I think I went to Bosnia for 2 weeks and did like a dog training handling course over there, and I learned a ridiculous amount of knowledge when I went over there, because they obviously do the mine detection dogs and stuff like that. But then when I got out, and started doing the water leak detection stuff with Luke, because it's something that no one's ever done before. It was really strange trying to think of like new training ideas that I was trying to take from like the mine detection dog stuff that I learned and implement it in water leak detection. And yeah, but like in the private sector, it's you have to. I think the hardest thing is getting a lot of the old school handlers to come into like the more newer ways, and that was quite cool to see, like older ways of methods that people stuck with, but trying to learn how to manage that and bring the newer ways and their ways together and try and solve problems together, like, and trying to educate more. Yeah.
How when you were in the army, how did things move forward? What, for the period of time that you were both in the army, did things move forward training wise with dogs, or did they remain pretty stagnant? Because one of the reasons I'm asking is I've met quite a few people who won't use a clicker. And clickers have been around for some time now, but for some people it's still that using a clicker is still like witchcraft. So yeah, did things move on in the military, dog training wise?
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, sorry, Luke, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, in the time I was in, I definitely saw a change. And that was, well, I say 2009, 2010, started to see more people start using clickers and more methods and stuff to start coming in. So yeah, I definitely saw a change. Just going back to your first question, which you asked Ross earlier as well, I think the transition, for me personally anyway, the one thing that I kind of struggled with was trying to find a job that I got a satisfaction from. So to leave, then go into private security, you might start doing night shifts. I was young, obviously, when I left the army as well. So you might start doing night shifts and you're stuck on site potentially 7 days a week doing nights, doing CT with your dog and doing training, but you want that little bit more. It's not, for me, it wasn't challenging enough. So the transition there, I think, if I was to speak to someone who was due to leave, it'd be look at the roles that you're going to go into and obviously mentally prepare yourself. You might not be at the height you was when you was in the military operationally. Yeah,
people might have to drop their perhaps not drop their standards, but drop their expectations a little.
Yeah, of what you're going to get from a job. Yeah, because it's not sometimes as serious with. Sometimes you want to train your dog and work it, and you want to be getting those fines. But for example, if you're on drugs at a football stadium or pyrotechnics or whatever you might do, you might not be getting those life fines constantly, and you might not be getting the thrill that you want from the job, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So the first when you guys joined together and now you work together, the first dogs that you trained were they bed bug dogs?
Go on, Russ.
Well, for the business now.
Yes, yeah.
We started off with bedbug detection dogs. Luke had all the knowledge of the bedbug detection dog prior to me gaining it. Like I learned all my stuff from him on the bedbug side. That was kind of why I contacted him in the first place, is because I wanted to get into bedbug detection dogs when I was leaving the army. That was actually what I wanted to get into, and Alex Wright put me in touch with Luke and said he was doing that, and so yeah, we got in contact before I got out and kind of stayed in contact to the point where we were able to set a business up together and doing the bedbug detection stuff. It was not as easy as what I thought it was going to be, but I learned a lot on that as well. That was cool.
And you're still doing bed bug detection now?
Yeah.
And is that how do you find that? Are you busy with that? And I presume it's hotels and aircraft searching as well, and that type of thing.
Yeah, so we've got obviously it's been quiet at the moment with regards to the hospitality sector being shut down through COVID restrictions. But yeah, we're working in like social housing as well. So we do a lot of bed bug detection work in social housing. The majority of our work, well, I say, yeah, the majority of our work would be hotel work. And obviously that's quiet at the moment. But yeah, we're picking up with social housing, and like you said, you can be searching aircraft, you can be searching transporters, trains, buses. So yeah, it's wherever people are sleeping.
I just want to pick up on something that Luke said there then, that Ross said there then, about, and you said that when you got started training with a bed bug dog with Luke, that it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. It was a bit more difficult. Well, prior to that, you'd obviously trained detection dogs.
Yeah.
One thing that I sort of want, I try and get across to people myself is, you might have trained dogs to find explosives, and you might have trained dogs to find drugs, but all disciplines are very different, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like, yeah, you could put your dog on a scent or an odor, whatever you want to call it, but it's the end result or what you want is different, and everything, all the factors and elements, and it could just completely mess that up for you.
Yeah, it's not often that people upset me, but this week someone upset me by saying, I obviously do a lot of tobacco work. And somebody said to me, oh, well, it's quite easy. You just like buy tobacco and and train a dog just like that. And I was absolutely fuming, because the hours and just the hours and the time that it's taken for me to specialise in tobacco, and to find concealments and this kind of thing. So I was glad that what you said then. You're a former military, dog who trained explosive dogs, but you found transition to bed bugs quite difficult, and a totally different discipline.
Yeah, 100%.
So one of the reasons that I wanted you guys to come on was because of your water leak dogs. And again, there might be people watching this thinking, oh, I've trained drugs dogs and I've trained bed bug dogs. Training a water leak detection dog, that's got to be just as simple. But
that's what I thought.
I was going to say exactly the same.
When you said exactly, yeah.
When you said,
go on.
When you said, oh, just put a dog on tobacco, just put a dog on tobacco, you can find cigarettes. When we were looking at a number of projects which we had in the back of our mind, we've still got some of them are still on the list. We were going through what was the most sensible to push into next, and we was like, water. You've got water in the tap. You've got fields all around you. Yeah, just do water leaks. And it was as far from it.
Oh my God, it's like the hardest thing I've ever done.
Well, Luke hasn't spoken at length, about it in the past, but we've had little chats, and again, how much. Just sort of explain to people, it's not a case of putting a dog on to finding water and the stuff that's in the water. How much time? I mean, it's been a project for you, hasn't it? It has been a real lengthy sort of project to get up and running. Tell us all about it.
Go on.
So where do you want me to start from?
Well. When you had the idea of water leaks, where did you go from there?
So basically, once me and Luke decided that we wanted to do the water leak detection stuff, I emailed pretty much every email that I could see on Google for water leak or water companies, like all the brands. And we got I got an email back from United Utilities, and they were interested in it, and they said that they will help fund us do the project because it's something that hasn't been done before, and we needed to do proof of concept. So with that, before that, I was like, yeah, this is going to be easy, like it shouldn't be a problem. And then the more I learned about like water and chlorine and elements, like how it's affected in this element and how it's affected in this element, and the pipes are like 2 meters underground, and then a different diameters of pipe, and each pipe is like a different material. So you'd have like cast iron, you'd have PVC, you'd have asbestos, you'd have concrete, and then these are all the things that I didn't even realize about, that's going to make the scent different every time you do a different line. So yeah, that was, and yeah, so then we kind of started from there and then worked out all the kinks.
And what about, so let's talk about sort of dog selection now. What were you thinking about when you were thinking about choosing a dog? Did you have a dog already that you thought would be, what did you take into consideration for dog selection?
So the dog side was a bit of an accident, to be honest. So I trialed a few different dogs to do the job, and I rejected all of them because they were just not good enough. They didn't have the drive to want to do the work that we needed them to do. And so my dog Snipe was a bedbug detection dog, and he was obviously already trained up. And you wanted to do a release to the media about us, but I still haven't got a dog to show them yet, and I had like 2 or 3 weeks to get a dog ready. So I basically said, sorry Snipe, mate, you're already halfway there, like you're trained on a scent, and bed bugs are never going to be found in a field. So I was just like, I might as well just train him up on a new odor that's going to be the chlorine that's added to the water. And then I just like hard out trained him for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I got to the time to do the media, and I was lucky enough to be able to get him to the standard that they wanted at the time. So, which is just to show the dog doing scent recognition with distractors like on camera and stuff like that. So it was like super basic stuff at the beginning.
And just going back, so sorry. But initially as well, we got a couple of puppies. So we got 2 puppies, and our idea, we wanted to train these puppies from a young age for the water. Is that right, Ross? You do the same with me, mate.
Yeah.
And we got the puppies, and it was like, right, okay, new project, new dogs, let's go. And we found pretty quickly that we were going to make mistakes because it was a new project, and we were going to make mistakes because something was going to catch us out from the environment, one thing or another. There's been trial and error, and quite quickly we figured out we don't want to be making mistakes with puppies with a fresh brain, fresh mind, because then you're going to cause problems later on. And if you try and just force through with it, we were going to fail with those puppies. So that's why we decided then to move on, like with Snipe and Denzel, because they're older dogs, more experienced dogs, and they'll forgive you for making a mistake. It's not gonna stick in their mind, oh, that's how we do it. If you make a mistake with another dog, they're gonna, especially an experienced dog, for us Denzel and Snipe, we're gonna be more forgiving.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
And so Denzel and Snipe, you said you had like 3 weeks for Snipe, Ross, to get him up to a sort of a standard to show them what he was capable of. But how long to get him, him and your other dogs now? How actually long does it take to get them to a standard, an operational standard? Then
So is a difficult question to answer, because it's dog dependent, right? Like some dogs are quicker than others, just like people. And So it took so I did another 3 months worth of training with him. I'm just trying to remember because it was so long ago now. Did like an extra 3 months of training with him, and then we got to a point where I said, "Oh, I want to test him on live confirmed leaks, so then I could give him onto that." And then it's areas that the water company knew that there were leaks on, so then I would put them on them. I reward them, and then once I got a percentage, so I find 10 of them, and I want to get at least 8 of them out of the 10. I could then start working my dog live. But I think with dogs in that classification, the training is just ongoing all the time.
Exactly what I was
It never ever stops. And I think every day I'm learning something different when I'm working those lines, and with being on different terrains and how different elements do different things. Is an absolute minefield, honestly.
And how many? Just out of curiosity, how many miles are you walking a day when you're searching?
We do 4 kilometers up to 4 kilometers per dog per day.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we do in the winter time they could push on further than that. If we have to, but we generally try not to because it's unfair working a dog beyond something that it doesn't need to do. So yeah, we want to keep them interested as well, and it's hard for us to keep them interested day in day out when we're doing 4 kilometers a day with one dog. So and sometimes we've got 2 dogs, and we're having to double back on ourselves and then go back out. So yeah, it's crazy.
So what kind of depth are some of these water leaks that you're detecting?
So
go on.
They're all a variety. So they'll be like Ross was saying earlier about the dimensions and the depth. It can be asbestos cement. It could be say 2 or 3 foot down, and it could be say 50 inches wide. But then you might get a 2-inch plastic pipe that's a foot below the ground. That'll be under different pressure. And like Ross was saying, I 100% believe that the dog, you get them to an operational standard to what say a utility company is then happy with. But then for us, it's the company will be they find the leaks, brilliant. That's exactly what we want. We're doing our job. But for us, then we want to find harder leaks and more leaks. So the dogs are each leak they find, they're constantly getting the information from. So I feel like the more they do it, they're going to get different types of leaks. So for example, if you've got a 20-inch pipe, which is under plastic, under the ground, 2 foot, that might be coming out at, say, 10,000 litres a second. Now, by the time that chlorine's come out that pipe and come up through the ground, it's going to be weaker, the scent is changing. So the dogs are detecting the leaks at different concentrations of scent constantly, different types of soil, different types of ground. It might be in a cornfield, it might be in a grass field. And when they're finding the leaks, for me, all of this is just feeding into them. Every time they're being reinforced for it, they're getting a different picture. So yeah, 100% they are. For me, they're still getting better and better because they're doing the job more, because there's so much variety around that role.
And they find them so often that they're being rewarded for that as well, live on the job.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I always say that I've learned so much about my dogs having live finds, concealments. I haven't put them there. Criminals have put them there. I don't know whether the dog's right or wrong, but I'm reading the dog, and the dog's telling me it's there. I mean, I've learned so much. How much have you learned from being out in the field, and how much have you learned being live rather than just from training scenarios? If that makes sense.
Yeah, training. I think training for this capability is one of the hardest training. I say one of the hardest. For me, one of the hardest training scenarios I've done, because you can't. Whenever you're training for a specific job, you want to recreate the leak as real as possible. Now, for us, when we were then testing the dogs originally in training, you might be putting a scent in pots. We got water in pots, but then when you go transfer that scent into the live environment, you've got to do something with it. You've got to pour it out. if you've got to pour it out or spray it out, you've got to leave tracks. So then you're putting something into that picture that you don't want to be there, that's out in the real life or real-time finds. So for us, we wanted to get out on real leaks as quick as possible. And going back to the training, for me, is we can't, specifically water, you can't recreate the perfect scenario, which is a live leak in a field, because you always have to do something with it. And a perfect example before was we've done a demonstration for Scottish Water, and I asked them, had anyone walked down there, had anyone been down there investigating in the last week? And that's what I used to ask for: no one to touch your leather environment, go back to normal as best as you can. And they said no. So I carried on searching. Within 5 meters, I could tell that Denzel was tracking someone. So and I stopped him straight away, because I don't want that. Because obviously with us in training, when we'd have to pour leaks out, or we'd go near a wall and lean over, pour it out. So there was no contamination on the other side. We looked at drones, buying drones to spray water out. So you can't recreate the perfect leak. So to answer your question, for what we learned from the training environment to the live environment for me taught me absolutely 1,000 times more.
Yeah.
That no, that makes sense. That does, and that's one of the reasons why I asked that question. I mean, I was thinking it's probably very, very difficult, if not impossible, for you to replicate a water leak. You know, like you would. Yeah. And how excited do you get when the dog, when you're somewhere and the dog is, indicating and having a find? How does it still excite you?
Once we find out that it's real, yeah. At the time, you're like, you better not be blagging me.
That was my next question. So from when the dog indicates, so you're in the middle of wherever and the dog's indicating, how is it? What's the process then from the dog indicating to it being confirmed, and also, from the dog indicating, do you reward? What happens?
Do you me to go, you, Luke?
Yeah, go on, I'll go. You go, then I'll go.
Okay, cool. I hate going first. So when the dog does an indication, we have methods that we do. So if the dog indicates, he doesn't get a reward, he gets taken away, or told to lay down or whatever. And if there's a leak that's showing, we've got these test samples that we could do, so we could get confirmation from the water itself. So we take 2 different samples. One has sulfate, Luke?
Yeah, phosphate
and chlorine. One goes phosphate goes blue and the chlorine goes pink. And if that happens, we know, and then we just put the dog back on and then reward him then. Which is not perfect, but it is what it is, because you don't want to reward for something that's not what it is. So you're best off having a little bit of control over it.
Yeah.
The other way is that we have a listening stick, and you bang that into the ground, and you have like a wooden knob on the top, and you can listen, and you can hear vibration noises coming through the ground from the leak from the pipe if there is a leak going on. But that's quite difficult to do, and you have to have quite a fine ear to hear that. I mainly hear the pulse in my head. And then we've got another new method that we use called the correlation, which Luke is best off explaining to you than myself, because he's the one who's trained up on it at the moment.
Yeah, so just going picking up as well on Ross was saying about the confirmation method. So from obviously early on in early days when we'd be working, we'd take the dogs out, and obviously we were still proving the concept as we were going. So as if dog shows change of behavior, indicates we go, okay, good boy, move him away, then we'll do our investigation. Because this is what we learned, there's a number of things that can catch you out. So for example, there's land drains that will run alongside mains or down onto mains, and land drains can be just drains that farmers have put in years ago to drain the yards. Now they're using water in the yard. Now then that yard the water in that yard is going to pick up different types of materials, cleaning chemicals, all different types of stuff. So what we do is we check if it's chlorinated water, and we check that it's got phosphate in it, so we know that it's the treated water we're looking for, because we don't want to start rewarding. Yeah, it might have chlorine in there, but it might have a lot of other things in it that if we start rewarding on, it's going to take away the scent picture that we really want him to find. Yeah. So the investigation for us is, like, some of them are very easy. You'll come across, you can see especially in the summer, you can see the ground's wet, the dog's giving you an indication, you can see water come up through the ground, just reward on that straight away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then if you need to do a bit more investigation, you can move the dog away, and then, yeah, that's when we go secondary and like third confirmation. But the correlator we use, and this is a big thing for us, because we know our dogs are working and they're finding leaks, but we really want to fine tune what the dogs can't do and what the limitation of them is. So for us now, we've invested into our mapping system with United Utilities. We invested in correlation, so we know when we're out on the ground the depth of the pipe, the material of the pipe, the diameter of the pipe. We can see everything in the area, because again, in the past we've picked up leaks, and it might just be a valve that's leaking or a sluice valve that's leaking that's part of the network. And obviously we think it's a leak on a main, but it's a leak on a joint. So for us, using the correlator, we can confirm findings on the ground. So for us, what we used to do was we'd search for the dog, we'd then report the finding, then we'd wait to hear back whether it was a leak, when it got repaired, what the loss rate was. Whereas now we can go on the ground with the dog gives us an indication, we can then get a water sample, we've got listening equipment we can then do further investigation with, and then the correlator, which is probably the best bit of equipment we've invested in recently, where you can use the fittings on the pipe. So if you've got a length of pipe, you've got 2 air valves, you can then run a correlation, and then that'll tell you if the dog's hit on the leak and exactly where it is. And then we can collect the data ourselves, and then we can take the depth, we can take the diameter. And for me, then, in the next 6 months to a year, we've built a file of, okay, the dog's had 20 leaks on 10-inch cast irons that were 2 meters down. Okay, the test of the chlorine was 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 parts per million. We saved this amount of water. Then we can start building a picture of where the dogs are hitting the most leaks and where the dogs are finding the lesser leaks. So if the lesser leaks, the smaller pipes and the less pressure might not push that scent to the top because it's constantly dying the scent. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, we've had to build the capability and get as much to suit us and to make us happy, so we know exactly everything we can. Because like I said, and like Ross said, it's such a tricky capability.
Yeah. So we've got a question here now. It's on your screen. So this is Damir in Zagreb. Is there any official standard for leak detection dogs, or each company produce their own operational standard? Now, I quite like this question. I know why Damir's asked this. I mean, basically, is there anybody out there qualified to tell you guys what you're doing? I would imagine there's not, is there?
No, there's not. But the rant I just went on about the correlation and collecting data is part of a bigger picture for us, because we've been doing this job now for over 2 years. We've learned a lot. We've invested in the capability, not just with the dogs, but to create a service. And for us, all that data is important. So then we can take the water regulatory body and get the concept standardized from us and our data and the dogs that we've collected.
So you guys are basically, I mean, it was a project that started that no one else had ever done, and you're now, collating and gathering all your own findings, and basically you guys are setting the standard, basically, aren't you?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, hope that answers your question, Damir. So another question now from Chris, the cadaver guy in Croatia. What are the water leak detection dogs actually imprinted on? Obviously, water all around us, so I guess there is something specific dogs are imprinted on. Remember, don't give out any trade secrets, guys.
Yeah.
Go on, Ross.
Yeah, just chlorine, just chlorine, but not any type of chlorine. It's got to be particular type of chlorine that the water companies use to treat their water. That's regulated for like safety of human consumption and everything else like that.
And different companies will treat the water differently as well. So Scotland will treat it a little bit differently to Yorkshire Water. Yorkshire Water will treat it a little bit differently to United Utilities. Just levels, but there will be certain aspects which is different as well.
Yeah.
So what we do in that situation is we'd trade, if we were going to a different area, we'd just do some imprinting and just get some on leaks in that area.
Yeah. And there is a difference. The dogs have been different between the different water companies' water. When I was living up in Liverpool at the time, and I was doing work with Luke with United Utilities, Snipe was like bagging leaks out all over the place, like he was amazing. And then I came down to Bristol, and he struggled on the water in Bristol. So then I had to do more training on him with the local water from down here, which was quite weird.
So is there a difference in the actual, are there different chlorines, or is it just the level of the same chlorine that companies are different?
Yeah, it is. They'll all basically treat them the similar ways to obviously make the water clean, but they'll use, like you said, they'll use different products at different levels. So yeah, I don't know the 100% like the ins and outs of what they're using. But yeah, some of them are just different. Some of them is less, like Scottish Water right up the north of Scotland. They hardly use any chlorine. So that scent again is going to be
weaker.
Yeah, so what we normally get, like once it's been treated, you're looking at between 0.7, 0.8 parts per million, sometimes 0.5 while it's in the pipe. But by the time it comes out to your house, it's at 0.1, maybe 0.2. So it's constantly dying. So if you think, say, for example, north of Scotland, their water's very clean anyway, so they don't have to treat it much. So if they don't have to treat it much, then it might only be 0.2 in the pipe, 0.1 in the pipe. And then if that's then running on 0.2, 0.1, then it breaches the pipe. It's getting weaker coming through the ground. So that would be an example where it's definitely harder for the dogs. And yeah, like Ross said, different stuff that's actually being used as well.
Jay Evans has put here, I'm not sure what soft water versus hard water. Does that make any sense to you guys?
So I believe soft water versus hard water. I'm sure you might be speaking about. I've heard people in the water industry talk about it, and I think it might be the treatment types, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Have you done anything with Welsh water? Are you conserving Welsh water?
Potentially.
Okay. Okay. So this is another question from Simon. Simon the vet. Do you or water utilities use drones to image areas of likely leaks, i.e. for flora changes along the routes you examine? I suppose that's an interesting question. Would there be any, like with cadaver, you get different flora growing on top? Is that the same with chlorinated water? And
yeah, so they've trialed drones in the past. I know quite a few water companies have trialed drones in the past. From what I believe, it was using thermal imaging. So and in the right types of conditions, so they could see the change in temperature from the ground where the water's sitting underneath. I'm not too sure if they're using them now, but just kind of staying on the subject of drones, we're doing work for United Utilities that off the back of Utilis, which Utilis is a satellite, and is a satellite company from San Diego who basically do a flyover with a satellite, and the satellite was used to potentially detect if there was water on the moon or Mars and other planets. Now they can detect water under the ground in pockets using, I'm sure it's using, the name's gone from me. But yeah, they can basically see pockets of water in the ground, and we're going up off the back of them as well. So it's utilizing so many different aspects for leakage everywhere at the moment. And yeah, for us, it's quite good getting out off the back of the sat spots as well.
How often have you heard the people that you deal with from the water utility companies? How often have you heard them say, to you, I don't know how we managed before without dogs? Is that something that's said?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Like people like it. I wouldn't say it's we've like fixed all the problems. There's so many methods out there.
It's just a tool. It's just a tool
Yeah.
to help with everything else that they need to try and solve water leaks, which is obviously like a really big deal.
And
Yeah.
like each concept really excels in one area or another. So
Yeah.
like they've got cameras that they can use. They've got state-of-the-art cameras. They've got satellites. They've got dogs. They've got technicians. And for example, the dogs are good in rural areas because the pipes are bigger and they don't have so many fittings. So you might get a fit in once. And when I say fit in, I mean like an air valve or a hydrant or something else. Now, if you've only got a fit in, say, every 800 meters or 1,000 meters, that makes it difficult for technicians to sound, and it makes it difficult for other technologies to be used. So, for example, our correlator that we purchased ourselves and invested in, that has an accuracy of up to 1 kilometer. So anything further than that, you can't use it. So if the fittings are not there, you can't potentially use a correlator on that one. And the sound doesn't travel. You can't really hear the sounds either then. So if you're using listening devices on a hydrant, they're not there. And the leak, when there's a leak, it'll travel down the pipe. Now, if you ask to travel 800 meters, it's going to be so quiet. Whereas in urban areas, the fittings are a lot closer. So you might have to travel 30 meters or 50 meters so you can hear an audible sound. So if you were to send text, just walk in the lines, the fittings are not there to sound really. You'd just be going visual. Now, obviously, we're out with the dogs reading maps. We're visually watching a dog, but we've also got a nose on the ground as well. So that's what makes us different.
Yeah.
And then, for example, we might pick up a point of interest, and they might use a camera and dig a hole because they need certain confirmations before they start looking and digging. Go on, Ross.
Yeah, I was just gonna say with like technicians just walking the line, and obviously with how much water we have from rainfall and land runoff. Say you got like 1,000 puddles in one field, and the dog indicates on one of the puddles, you know, to take the sample from that puddle, and then you can see if there's chlorine in it by using your chlorine tablets or whatever. So that's also why it's good to use dogs to navigate around difficult terrain in that way.
Have you had people who there's obviously dogs out there that detect oil leaks and gas leaks. Have you looked at your work is very similar to that, I would imagine. Have you looked at what they do, and have you had people contacting you that do that type of work?
Yeah, well, you got Paul Bunker. He's like the lead of the dog world with the oil stuff. So he'd be the person who I would talk to, and with all of that.
So there's a question here from Charlie. How long does it take from the dog finding the leak to it being fixed?
It can vary. Some of them might get done quite quickly. Some of them might take a little bit longer. It depends. Totally depends again on the size of the main, how strategic it is. It can totally depend. Sorry, Stu, I can see a question there which caught my eye. That's all. Do you mind if it's Valerie Barber?
Oh yes, Valerie. Yeah.
So and that's when we were just going. We're going right back now, back to when we were talking about the concept and how difficult it is for the dogs as well. It's that's one thing that really sticks in my mind, depending on the pipe and the ground. So, for example, if you've got a pipe running on a hill that's sloping down, and the leak might be on the bottom of that pipe, which is just going to be pushing down to the bottom of the pipe and then escaping down the hill, then the scent might not come to the surface. So, like I said, we're always thinking of what could. If the dogs didn't find a leak, what could potentially be the reason? Now, that type of ground, and potentially if the burst is on the bottom of the pipe, that's then going to be moving down the hill, which is not allowing any scent to come up to the surface for our dogs to detect. So that definitely can, well, I wouldn't say cause a problem, but it's a limitation, I believe.
Okay. Amir's asking again, what kind of indication are you using? What are the dogs? What are you training the dogs to do?
Just passive indication, just a sit or a down or a stand. We're not too bothered. Whatever natural passive indication the dog does, I just allow it to do that.
Yeah.
It's not searching for IEDs or anything like that. It's just a water leak. So whatever is most comfortable for the dog, and I'll just imprint on what the natural behavior is.
So, are you able to say how many water dogs are you working at the moment?
4,
5. Was it 4?
4, yeah. I think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so has any studies been carried out on any long-term effects on the dogs from chlorine?
Matt Jones,
Matt,
expert core. What was the question?
has any studies been carried out on any long-term effects on the dogs from chlorine?
No. The level that it comes out at is so small. It'd be less than what you drink from the tap.
Yeah. I was just going to say, obviously, people are putting their dog bowls to the tap, aren't they? And they're drinking this. So,
yeah.
Okay. Simon. Simon, have you heard of Vessel, the lab in Arkansas, USA?
Yeah.
We saw media media release on that.
Yeah, we spoke to them as well. I spoke to them as well, but didn't really get any major information, really.
Okay. Okay. So, I think. Wesley's. Obviously, Wesley. You've spoken to Wesley.
Yeah.
Wesley. I think Wesley's doing something similar now, but I think their water different in Holland?
Yeah, so I've been speaking to Wesley a couple of times, and it sounds a lot different. Obviously it's a same job, but a lot different to how we're doing it. And it sounds very interesting over there as well, because the water's not treated, and sometimes they heat it to go into the house. So there's a lot of different dynamics. I've got a lot of questions for him as well.
Okay. Cool. I'm just looking to see through the questions here. Charlie, do you think in the future you would run courses for protection?
Possibly. Could be that's why we're collecting the data now. So I guess is the answer. If we're collecting the data to try and get ourselves get the classification standardized, then we're going to have to offer a course if people want to start going into that industry. So
you don't want too many people going into it, though, do you?
Not too many.
You're gonna have I don't want to sound big-headed or anything, but you need to be experienced to come into this kind of thing. Otherwise, your dog is just gonna break. They're so sensitive to everything.
It's and it's thrown. I've learned more doing this type of dog training and this work in this classification than I have through every single other classification that I've done. And we were only speaking about it on the weekend. Just the things that people need to have the experience or be aware of. Just the dogs even making natural associations where they're not wrong, being able to notice those, how to keep the dog interested and manage the dog. And I've spoken to a couple of people in the past, because, for example, one dog might be working 2 or 3 days a week, searching 3 to 4 kilometers across a grassy field that doesn't have nothing there. It might not be no leaks there. That's so boring. That's boring for the dogs. We're trying to keep it narrow on a pipeline where we're reading the mapping. So just having to keep the dogs' interest up and work is it's a hard job for the dogs as well. Really hard job for the dogs, and an intense job for them. And I speak to people that have done tracking and stuff, and X amount they've run, say 4 or 5 mile tracks or whatever. But for me, I used to compare it to that, and I can't compare it to it anymore, because the dogs, I think of tracking like the dogs are looking, they've got a breadcrumb, they've got a trail of breadcrumbs to find. Yeah, and you might get a break in that, but hopefully then the dog can pick it up. Whereas we're expecting the dogs to work similar to that, but with no breadcrumbs, no clues, no hints, no actual target. For example, let's say not a vehicle, or it's not a person. I really do think it's mind numbing for the dogs as well.
And when you take the dogs on their day off, just into a field, what do they do when they go into a field? Do they go into search mode, or what? What do they do? Do they know how to switch off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My ones do. I think like all my dogs switch off nicely and able to tell the difference between working and like, hey, there's so many cues, and I've got like so many dogs in the house that when they're by themselves, they've basically been told when you're by yourself you're working, but when you're with the other dogs, then you can do whatever you want. And they've never been rewarded while being with all the other dogs or trained or anything like that.
Yeah,
so it's just
massively.
It's like a trigger, massive trigger. Yeah.
And like it's like for me, like people ask me that all the time, but once I'm at the back of the van, I've got my bag on, I've got the dog's harness on, I'm rigged up, I'm ready to go. He knows straight away. So yeah, if they worked like they did when they were on a walk, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be finding 0 leaks.
And again, a breed of dogs. Is it spaniels you're using for this, or Labradors, or?
Spaniels, we cross spaniels.
Yeah, spaniels, but not on purpose. We would use we'd use any breed that has the drive to want to work. As long as it's got the drive, and as long as it's not like an absolute medical disaster, I'd definitely give any breed a go.
What about? I'm thinking about what about a Mallee for you guys for this type of work? Would that be that would be a good breed, surely?
Yeah, I love the idea of a Mallee. The Mallees are like my favorite breed, but I don't want a big dog like that in my house, so I generally choose smaller dogs just because I don't kennel my dogs. And my dogs live in the house with me, and I don't want loads of massive dogs like smashing the place up. So that's why I go with more cockers and dogs like the spaniels like that, and it's more just because of the size and living with me.
Yeah, and I think like it's but we come across in farmland a lot of the time, and we come across farmers that sometimes they don't know we're there. Obviously the water companies push notices out, but when a farmer sees you in the field and you've got a dog off the lead working off lead or on lead, he automatically thinks there's some idiot who shouldn't be doing what they're doing, walking the dog through the field, and so you get them really defensive. So I think that'd increase even more if they saw a guy with a Mallee in the field as well. They might not know what breed of dog is, but instantly it looks different, and it's obviously that's a problem. And also going access, like getting over fences, getting over gates. You're gonna
them up,
we'd end up having to do 2 kilometers because we'd be knackered from lifting it. So it's but yeah, I'd love to have one. I'd love to train one to do it, but I just don't think we'd be able to.
Just to give you an idea, like when we're searching the lines, it's not just a straight line that's being cut with a lawnmower and it's perfect. Like we're having to go through up and over like hedges and around, and there's like hardly any like access gates. You have to like try and work ourselves around, and we'd end up going like 500 meters off of the pipeline just to come back up and back in to get back to just the other side of the hedge. So like there's a lot of factors like that people it's hard work, like river crossings, stream crossings, irrigation ditch, like everything.
I
remember sorry, Stu, go on.
I've seen some of your Instagram posts hitting down the drain with a dog in wet weather gear. It's not for your armchair handler, is it? We got a couple more questions. James Hutton. Don't know if it's been asked, but at what maximum depth has a leak been detected?
That one I can actually answer. It was 2.2 meters underground, and it was pushing out. What was it, Luke? That one, was it like 10,000 liters an hour or like 5,000 liters an hour? Somewhere around.
Yeah, it wasn't far around there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was around that range.
Cool.
Yeah.
James is trying to catch you out. He's a former Royal Marine and retired police dog handler. So that was I think he was trying to ask you a difficult question there, guys. So here we go from YouTube. So Vidran is, I think Vidran is from Mine Detection Dogs in Sarajevo. How much time do you need for imprinting? How many trainings, and do you use samples or do it on location?
So yeah, again, I think it depends on the dog, how quick the dog is learning. Yeah, but I think you can imprint the dog on the scent. If it's just one specific scent, I think you can imprint the dog on that specific scent fairly quickly. The big thing for me then is if you've got a dog in the training room, you get on scent fairly quickly. And then it's that transferring that scent. And I think that's when, obviously, attention needs paying throughout. However, I think that's where you really need to pay more attention to how you're then moving that scent into context where the dog is going to be working for. So yeah, dog dependent for me. I wouldn't expect to spend most of the time on imprinting. It'd be once the dog's imprinted, then I want to get this scent into the environment that's going to be working at different levels as much as possible.
Yeah, it's all about the live confirmed leaks, and less about the worrying about the imprinting of the scent that you're putting out. Just get the pattern of the dog that you want, and then get the live confirmed.
One thing, I don't know whether you do it with your dogs, but when I've had new tobacco dogs, I've obviously imprinted them, and the best way that I've found is to I'll take a new dog with me on a job. If one of the experienced dogs has a finds a concealment, I'll then run the new dog over it. Is that something that you do with you've been doing with your water dogs, running a new dog over stuff in the field?
Yeah, so yeah, I've done it with I've done it with Kilo. I've done it with some of the other dogs as well, but yeah, but that's 100%. It's perfect. So like Denzel and Sniper are guinea pigs for this, really. And then I got a new Springer from a puppy, and I was like, okay, he's going to be my Denzel 2.0, and he's going to have a cleaner. He's going to have a cleaner set of training. But with him, I wouldn't put him on straight away. So I wouldn't take him out of the van. Obviously, I know a lot of people don't have the luxury to be able to go back to something. For us, if the leak's not getting repaired within a week or whatever, we'll go back. And I try to leave it for at least a week before I go back. And hopefully there's been a bit of weather in between. So my tracks are not going to be there. Denzel's not going to be there. Even by the gate, the smell of my hand jumping over that gate is not going to be there, because all of that's clues for him. If he gets all his real live finds with my scent, Denzel's scent, disturbance of the area, all a factor, that becomes what he's looking for. And he might come across the chlorine. He might come across chlorine, but he's still missing a few pieces of the puzzle. So yeah, we try and leave it a week, but then yeah, if we can put the dogs on a live leak that the dog's already had, it's perfect setup. But you have to vary it as well, because Kilo, for example, I won't just get him out of the van, drive to a leak, throw him on in, takes 50, 60 meters, because then he's going to get an assumption, he's going to get a leak within 100 meters and then sack the other 2.9 kilometers off. So what I'll do then is I'll just run a false search. I might just search around a couple of fields, then come back to it to make it as realistic as possible. Yeah, and it's just setting them up to succeed and trying to do it as clean as possible, I think. But yeah, sorry, Ross, comment.
I can't remember what I was going to say. Basically, like Luke said about leaving it a week, but that'd be like the minimum. Yeah. Sometimes it does take a while for the people to come out and fix the leaks. So yeah, we're trying to leave it as long as possible. Like if it's over a month, then that's great. If it's longer, then that's even better. And then we'll put the dogs on it like that. But what we're trying to do is we'd keep the dogs rotating through the actual job itself to give the other dog a chance to get its own life as well.
Cool. No, that all makes sense. So a couple more questions here. Lindsay Davis, do you practice with buried samples under different soils?
No, because then you're creating disturbance. If you're digging it up, that means you're going to have to dig another like 50 odd holes, because if you end up rewarding your dog on that one, then it's being rewarded for the disturbance and most probably not for the chlorinated water, and the chlorinated water evaporates anyway. So, and if you've got the lid off and there's bits of soil dripping into the pot that you've buried, and then the chlorine is meant to kill bacteria, and there's bacteria in that, and it's going to kill that, and then that's going to evaporate the water, the chlorine amount as well. And then and then you might just end up having a dog on disturbance, but and you're just going to end up creating too much work for yourself and problems.
I think, like with that question Ross has answered as well, is we very rarely go back to training now. At the start, I'd speak to United Utilities and say, oh, can you send me, because they need us for rural leakage. Obviously, they're fine in rural leakage as well. But for us, I'd say to United Utilities or Yorkshire Water, can you send us leaks that you have in urban environments? And I'd go out on the urban environments, because the dog's getting the realest scent as it can. Like Ross said, if you're digging stuff in, it's not going to be as real as possible.
No.
So we very rarely go back. For me anyway, I very rarely go back to training and getting involved in trying to recreate CT for the dog. I'll try and use the environment or the leaks that I've already found and work around that to create my CT, because I don't want my presence or any other human presence involved in it. So yeah, that's when going back earlier to when you said about how much you've learned through working live and how much the dogs learn through working live. That's how important it is for them. Like when me and Ross said on the weekend, it's almost like those leaks become your pots or your focus wall.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying there about the live stuff. Cool. I think that's all the questions we've had, guys, and we've had over an hour now. Blimey, yeah, we've had loads of questions, lots of people watching. Thank you for thanks very much for coming and chatting about it. It's been I found it very interesting. There's been people from all over the world watching, so thank you, guys. It has been really different as well, very different to some of the other stuff that we've spoken about. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us on, and thanks for everyone who tuned in. Hope they enjoyed it, and I hope they could understand me, because this is one of the first times I've not had subtitles. So,
well, you guys are on. You've got a Twitter account and Instagram. Have you got a Facebook account as well, haven't you? Yeah,
they're all the same. Yeah, at CAPE SPC. They should be able to find us.
Yeah, so I've put your hashtag down there, CAPE SPC. So if people want to find out more or ask you any more questions, then they know where to find you.
Yeah, if they've got any more questions, just drop us a message on either Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, there's this when you said it's an hour. Yeah, it's it could have been a lot longer, I imagine. Yeah. Is like Ross said earlier, it's a minefield. So any questions or anything crops up, feel free to send us a message and ask.
No, thank you. It's been thanks for coming on. It has been really good. I really appreciate you coming on, and I think people have enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Lou. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. So, thank you. Thanks very much for Luke and for Ross coming on. That was totally different. Really interesting. Nice pair of guys. If you've got any questions, hunt them out on social media. I'm not sure when the next one of these talks is going to be. I've got a few speakers lined up. If you keep looking at my Facebook page, the BWI-K9 Facebook page, and the next speaker or speakers will be announced on there. So hopefully we'll have one more before Christmas. Thanks very much for watching.